Ever had a game in Marvel Rivals where you're absolutely steamrolling the entire enemy team? I mean, you're untouchable. Your team isn't dying, you're dropping insane damage, and by the end, you're the MVP. You feel like you're a top 500 player, and of course, you hit that seductive one more round button, because why stop now? But then, the game flips on you. Suddenly your tanks are diving in alone, your DPS can't hit a single shot, and your healers misinterpreted their role because all they want to do is attack the enemy. What happened? Is it you? No way. It's gotta be them. Your teammates are playing as if they don't even have fingers, and that's because they don't. In fact, they don't even have a brain, because they aren't real. Marvel Rivals has been quietly filling your matches with bots, and you probably haven't even noticed. At first, this might seem harmless, but as we dig deeper, you'll start to see how manipulative bots can be in player versus player games, and why this trend is ruining online multiplayer for the entire gaming industry. The problem with Marvel Rivals isn't it just has bots, it's how they try to hide them. Unlike Halo Infinite, where bots are clearly labeled, Marvel Rivals goes out of its way to pretend bots are real players. It even gives them normal usernames so you don't suspect a thing, and honestly, they do a damn good job of it. You could play for hours without realizing some of your matches weren't even against humans. Initially, I thought these were just really bad players, maybe people who've never played a game like this before, but once I started paying attention, it became painfully obvious. See, here's a video of a player blocking an enemy as Invisible Woman. Any real person wouldn't know that there was a player there, but because these guys are actually AI, they would act as if the pathway is blocked. And here's another video which shows you what seems to be players moving around as if they are real, just for them to all stop at the same second, as if they are bots calculating a pathway to the objective. But the only way to be 100% certain if a player is a bot is by checking their profile. They should be rank 1 and having restricted access to their statistics. With how hidden these bots are, it makes me wonder how many of these matches are even real. And it's not just Marvel Rivals, more and more player versus player games are using bots as a mechanic. Fortnite, Apex Legends, Halo Infinite, they all do it to some extent. But Marvel Rivals takes it a step further by actively disguising bots as real players, creating an illusion that the lobbies are fuller and more competitive than they really are. And that's the part that bothers me, because it means your entire player versus player experience in Marvel Rivals might not even be PvP at all. You think you're getting better, but are you really? So why do game developers have artificial intelligence in their games? The most obvious reason is to fill lobbies. Nobody likes waiting for long matchmaking queues. You boot up a game, hit find match, and if it takes too long, you might just quit and play something else. Developers know this, which is why they use bots to fill empty slots and speed up matchmaking times. One of the biggest praises Marvel Rivals got was how fast the matchmaking was. People assumed it was because the game had a huge player base, but in reality, part of that speed came from the fact that the game was silently injecting bots into lobbies. When there weren't enough real players available, the system just threw in some AI to keep the match flowing. Another reason why developers use bots is to fill gaps when players leave mid-match. We've all been there. You've been in a tight match and suddenly one of your teammates rage quits. Immediately the game feels unwinnable. To avoid that, games like Halo Infinite will auto-insert a bot to keep the teams balanced. On paper, this sounds like a good idea. In practice, it's usually worse than playing a man down. Most of these bots aren't smart. They will run straight into fights, get picked off easily, and start feeding the enemy team free kills. And in games like Marvel Rivals where ultimates are charged based on damage dealt, a bot is basically a walking ultimate battery for the enemy team. At that point, I'd rather just play with one less teammate than have some AI dragging the team down. Now obviously I don't have an issue with bots in single player or co-op experiences. If you're playing an older game with a dead player base, maybe bots can help keep the game alive. But in mainstream player versus player games, that's where bots become a huge problem. The entire point of a player versus player game is to go up against other people. There's a certain thrill knowing that every fight, every win, every loss is the result of outplaying another human being. It doesn't matter if it's a 12-year-old squeaker with a Kinect mic, with you being able to hear their parents screaming at each other, or some 70-year-old grandpa who just discovered online gaming. There's something special about real human competition. And let's be honest, winning against another person feels good. Whether it's a casual game or a ranked match, we all get that dopamine rush from knowing we are better than someone else at that moment. But when games start mixing AI opponents, that entire experience gets diluted. Suddenly you're not sure if you actually outplayed someone or if you just beat a bot that was programmed to lose. With bots replacing real players, it also completely removes the social aspect of gaming. There's no trash talk, no satisfying clutch moments, no more making friends, just artificial competition. And when a game starts relying on bots to make you feel like you're improving, it's just ruining the experience, it's manipulating you. If the whole point of playing player versus player games is to compete against real people, why would developers sneak AI into the mix? The simple answer? Player retention. It's a lesser discussed reason, but it's something that publishers love the most. Bots aren't just there to fill lobbies, they're deeply tied into the game's skill-based matchmaking system, which is designed to manipulate player engagement. The goal isn't just to give you fair matches, it's to keep you playing for as long as possible. Why? Because the longer you play, the more likely you are to spend money on microtransactions. Developers know if a game frustrates you too much, you'll quit. But let's say if you win too easily, you'll get bored. That's where bots come in. They're not just padding out lobbies, they're carefully placed tools designed to control your dopamine flow. Most skill-based matchmaking systems work by matching you against players of similar skill levels. If you win too much, the system ramps up the difficulty, making you fight stronger opponents. Lose too much, and the game throws you a bone by giving easier matches. It's all about keeping you engaged without letting you feel too frustrated or too dominant for too long. Kinda like the YouTube algorithm, so please make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video so I can be blessed by the algorithm gods. Marvel Rivals seems to take this concept a step further. Instead of only adjusting your opponent's skill levels, it also adjusts the number of bots in your matches, on both your team and the enemy team. Doing too well, the game might sabotage you by matching you against higher skill players, which even if your team are not bots, usually makes you think they are. And if you're coming off a rough loss, it might hand you a free win by filling the enemy team with bots, making you feel like a god. This creates an illusion of skill. When you dominate, it feels like you're just that good, when in reality, you might just have been placed in a bot-filled lobby designed to boost your confidence. Ever seen those hero tier lists on YouTube where someone ranks a hero as a bottom tier, but there's always that one person that comments swearing up and down that the character is amazing? That's because of bot lobbies. That player isn't actually outperforming other real players with that hero. They're just destroying AI opponents without realizing it, inflating their ego. With bots, you aren't actually getting better. You aren't actually being challenged, so of course any hero can be good. At its core, player versus player games are supposed to be about real competition. The highs of outplaying a human opponent, the lows of getting wrecked, and a learning process in between. Bots completely undermine that. Winning against bots is unrewarding. It's like dunking on a 6-year-old in basketball. There's no challenge, no real sense of accomplishment. And losing because of bots is infuriating. Nothing is worse than having a bot teammate that brings you down no matter how good you play. Yet despite all of this, games like Marvel Rivals do a phenomenal job at keeping you hooked. They trick your brain into thinking that every match matters, that every win is a sign of progress, and that every loss is just an obstacle to overcome. At the end of the day, bots in games aren't inherently bad. They can be great for single player experiences, training modes, or keeping dead multiplayer games alive. But when they're secretly injected into player versus player games to manipulate players, they become a problem. Marvel Rivals isn't the first game to do this, and it definitely won't be the last. More and more developers are using bots not to improve the player experience, but to control it. To keep you engaged, to trick you into thinking you're better or worse than you actually are, and ultimately, to keep you playing and spending money for as long as possible. And the worst part? Most players don't even realize it's happening. So next time you queue up for a quick play game, ask yourself this. Are you actually playing against real people? Was that last minute clutch even real? Or are you just being manipulated by an AI driven matchmaking system? Because if games keep going down this trend, then eventually PvP games won't even be PvP anymore. It'll just be you versus a script designed to keep you on the hook. Have you noticed bots ruining your games? Do you think they can be implemented in a positive manner? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more critical Kevin complaints. Thanks for watching.